Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. Today what I want to talk to you about is making a ruling pen. These ruling pens are great use for calligraphy, scribing, letter forms of any kind, and many people actually draw with them as well. So what I want to do today is just kind of walk you through the process of making your own ruling pen. Sometimes these are called soda pop pens as well, or pop pen, and the reasons you'll find out here shortly. What I would like to do though first is just kind of go over the materials with you, and then we will go over how to build that. All right, let's dive in. The materials are really kind of your choice. I'll kind of go over the basics, but you can definitely look into some other materials yourself. So let's go over those really quick. First thing that you're going to need is, of course, a dowel. And if you don't want to use a wooden dowel and you want it to be a little bit more crafty and homemade, go for a walk, find yourself a nice stick. Make sure it's durable and solid and it's not going to break. And you can whittle this down and sand it and make a really nice homemade, kind of rustic looking handle, if you will. The second thing you're going to need is some type of tin or metal. So what I've chosen is I'm actually using roof flashing. That's right, this is roofing flashing. And it's fairly thin. It's got a good flex to it. And you can find this in any hardware store. Or you could try to use something a little bit more durable. This is a pretty rigid copper. And these different materials are, of course, going to give you a little bit different feel for the final nib pen when you're done. Also, the other thing that you can do is you can save yourself a soda pop can or an energy drink can or whatever it might be. Something made out of tin that you can use instead of the roof flanging. So this needs to be cut down. What you would want to do is cut the top and the bottom off and just unroll it. And once you unroll it, it actually will have a very similar shape to the roof flashing. The other thing that you're going to need is some type of tape, and the tape that I use, I have a Gaffer's tape that I'm using. And I like using Gaffer's tape as opposed to the duct tape. The duct tape can be used as well, and it sticks to itself really well. That's a great thing for adhesion, but if you want to adjust the tape as you're assembling it, the Gaffer's tape is going to come off a lot easier and let you work with that a little bit better. What I've decided to add to mine is actually a little bit of twine. So this is the twine that I'm using, and you can get any kind of twine at your local craft store. The diameter is entirely up to you. I will put a link in the description below for the materials that I've used. And you can see on this particular pen here, the twine around the end just covering the nib, and it covers the Gaffer's tape or the duct tape, whatever tape you're using. Don't use a masking tape or a painter's tape. That's not going to be strong enough to hold. You're going to need something pretty strong to hold onto that tape. So the twine to cover the tape. I also have some wood glue, and the wood glue actually goes on the ends of the twine to keep the twine from unraveling. And you would need a piece of sandpaper when it comes to tools. The sandpaper is going to help you if you're whittling down a stick. It's also going to help you when you finish off the end of your nib, and that's going to be used to kind of sand those burrs off in that to make that a lot more easier to write with. The tools that we're going to need are as follows. We are going to need a pair of tin snips. The tin snips are obviously for cutting the tin. So the other thing that we're going to need is a utility knife. The utility knife will be helpful if you want to whittle any of the wood down and if you are trimming any of the twine. The other thing that we can use is a pair of scissors. So you'll need the scissors to cut out a template, and they can be used to cut down the twine, and of course a Sharpie, because we're going to be using a template. We're going to draw that template onto the tin. And then the other tool that we will need is a small ruler of any kind, and this will help us draw a scribe line on the tin to help fold it. So with all of that said, we have our tools that we need, our materials that we've talked about. We're ready to dive in and build this thing. The one thing that you're going to need though is a handy template. You don't have to have a template. I'm going to be building some on my own where I'm not going to be using the template because I want to practice to see what size different nibs I can create on my pen, because those different shapes are going to allow us to get very different marks. So any change in how we trim this is going to really make a difference for the marks that it makes. So experiment with that and have a lot of fun as you build. let's go over the build process step by step. The template I'm using was found online. I'll include the link in the description below. Size your template to an accurate scale, meaning if the size of the nib pattern is to equal 2 1/4 inch, then print it at that size. Trace the nib pattern onto the tin of your choice using a Sharpie. Using tin snips, carefully cut out the pattern. Cut off those small edge sections and throw them away. Be careful, the tin is sharp. Using a ruler, locate the center of each side of the nib. Mark the center point using your Sharpie. Place a ruler on the 2 points and carefully score a light line with the utility knife. Center the nib onto the dowel using the score line as a reference. Begin to fold the nib around the dowel. The score will also help as a fold point as well. This takes a bit of pressure and work, but be careful the edges are sharp. Once folded and curved around the dowel, you'll next wrap the end of the nib with the tape. I prefer gaffer's tape over duct tape because it's easier to untape and readhere. You'll need about 5 to 6 inches in length. Tear that piece of tape in half lengthwise, creating 2 equal lengths of tape. Again, align the dowel to the shaft of the nib. Wrap the tape securely around both the dowel and the nib. I don't recommend masking tape. You'll need tape with some holding strength. Wrap the tape securely around the dowel and the nib. With the second length of tape, securely wrap around the first wrapping and the bare dowel. Start the twine along the length of the dowel and begin wrapping at the nib edge. Wrap the twine over itself, covering and securing the end of the twine. Continue wrapping toward the end of the tape from the previous step to cover all the tape. The twine is an aesthetic touch. It's not necessary. However, it looks nice and it adds a level of comfort when holding the pen. Continue wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. Be sure to secure and tight. Cut off the extra and not the end. I recommend 3 knots. Next, check the gap of the nib. If it needs flattening, use a flat tool that won't bend or damage the metal. Shape the nib end with tin snips. Here you can experiment with the shape. It'll affect the mark the pen makes. Recheck the gap in the nib. If it's too loose, it will not stay loaded with ink. If it's too tight, it won't take enough ink. You can adjust the gap with a straight edge, but be careful the metal's sharp. Recheck the nib gap again. You can always adjust this as you use your pen. Using glue, I prefer wood glue because it's stronger. Glue the ends of the twine. The glue will keep the twine from unraveling. However, be careful not to get glue over the twine or the nib. Glue on the twine takes away from the comfort. Glue on the nib can clog the gap. Here I'm using India ink with some ink cleaner. Load your pen with the desired amount of ink. You'll need to experiment with what is best for your pen. And you'll need to experiment how to best use your pen. Here I am simply dragging the pen to make the strokes to the letter. The angles at which you hold your pen will determine the width of your stroke. You can even try drawing with your ruling pen. So that's it. That's everything that you need to know to make your own ruling pen. We've talked about the different materials, so please experiment with the materials and try some different things to get some different results in your ruling pen. We've also talked about the list of tools that you need, so be sure that you have those on hand. And we've gone through a step-by-step process on how to make your ruling pen. So that's everything you need to know to make your ruling pen. If you've made your ruling pen and made some marks, leave some comments and some links below to the work that you've created. I'd love to check them out. So until the next time, happy lettering.